Whether clad in plate armor, holding the line, or shooting your bow while issuing maneuvers to people, the fighter is truly the master of all things combat related. In this video, I'll be going over another of the 12 classes ahead of the launch of Baldur's Gate 3 come August 3rd. Today we'll be focusing on the fighter. You can find the other classes linked in the playlist at the end of the video if you so wish, but I'll be pulling information from the 5th edition Player's Handbook, and I'll show off the early access character creation screen. There won't be a ton of visuals because I don't want to spoil anything from the game for myself or for you, but I might pull some visuals from confirmed abilities or whatnot that are in the game, so at least we can see what those look like. Now, how we'll be doing this video is by talking about the base kit without any subclasses, then go into the 3 subclasses that we know are coming at launch. It's worth noting that most subclass abilities go up to level 20 in D&D, but the cap for Baldur's Gate 3 is level 12. So I might quickly mention what those high-end abilities look like, but since we aren't sure if they'll be modifying any of the like level 14 ones and stuff like that, we'll pretty much just kind of be quickly going over those. But keep in mind, you can fully respec both your character and companion for the exception of their race. So I encourage you to try out every class you're curious about when the game launches. And please, as always, play how you want, not how the internet tells you. Lastly, I am no D&D expert, not even slightly, so I apologize if I missed the mark on any of these descriptions or what have you. If you need help with any of the terms, I made a quick terms guide for you in the upper right corner that goes over stuff like advantage, ability checks, and more. You can quickly navigate to any part of this video that interests you the most using chapters in both the timeline and the description. But don't forget to swing on over to my Twitch, where I will be streaming Baldur's Gate 3 on launch, linked in the description and pinned comment. And I do want to give a quick shout out to the brand new Baldur's Gate 3 wiki. It's a whole community run Wikipedia where they are going to be providing all the information they can as an ongoing resource as the game goes through its launch and future development, of course, stuff like that. And it's also ad-free. So please go ahead and check that out. If you have any questions or anything like that, like, hey, you know what? I don't know what this is. Go check out the wiki because it's going to be constantly updated and they're pulling as much resources as they can. They're trying to get their name out there because the Google algorithm kind of been kicking them in the balls here. So hopefully you guys can help them out by checking out the BG3 wiki. But let's get started here on my fighter class and subclass detailed breakdown for Baldur's Gate 3. Loading into the game, we have our fighter. And it's worth noting, a lot of people have said, like, you chose the thinnest person to represent a master of combat. In the actual launch of Baldur's Gate 3, we will have the option of other races, such as Dragonborn and Half-Orc, and we'll have a bunch of different appearance options here, not just these right here. So just kind of worth noting, if you look at this, go, man, I want my fighter to be just like a unit. Well, you will be able to in the launch version of the game. So to start us off, the level 1 fighter gets access to fighting styles. Now, a lot of other classes get access to fighting styles. We've talked about this, right? We talked about how, like, the ranger gets access to archery, or maybe the paladin gets access to defense and great weapon fighting and protection. But we've not really been able to take a look at them. So let's take a look at what all of these fighting styles do. Archery, well, you guessed it, it's about archery. So you gain +2 bonus to range weapon attacks. Your defense, you get +1 for the defense fighting style. You get +1 bonus to your armor class while wearing armor. Dueling is a unique one. So let's read this here together. And this is a huge shout out to a lot of you guys who have corrected me on this because it is not so cut and dry. This used to be called one-hand weapon fighting in the past, and it was only relegated to people that would strictly use one weapon in their hand. But this is, let's read this. When you are wielding a melee weapon in one hand and no weapon in the other, you gain a +2 bonus to damage rolls with that weapon, increasing your chance to do heavy damage. A shield is not considered a weapon. So for dueling, you can actually have a shield in your offhand. Just anything that's not considered a weapon. A dagger, it's a weapon. So anything that's not considered a weapon can go there and you can still get this +2 bonus to damage. So if you want to be a sword and board style of fighter, or even paladin for that matter, defense, dueling, protection, all kind of fall into that purview. But it just depends on how you want to go. Defense is going to give you more armor. Dueling is going to make it so you do more damage. Protection is going to make it so that you can give disadvantage on enemies that are attacking your allies around you. If I want to make another, like a comparison here, think of like the paladin in Final Fantasy IV or American Final Fantasy II, Cecil. If your character was low health, you jump in front and take the hit, right? You're not exactly doing that here. What you're doing is you're getting a reaction. So I'm going to go ahead and press T. I'm going to hover over this. Again, this is for people that don't really know what a reaction is. You have 3 types of action, more or less. Your action, which you can take and do your attack. A bonus action, which has got a number of things that are limited to. Then you get a reaction. Reactions, such as opportunity attacks, occur in response to another creature's action. So a reaction, in this case protection, is that when my bro around me gets attacked, I impose disadvantage on them. And remember, we've talked about this before too. You roll 2 dice for a disadvantage and an advantage. If they're at a disadvantage, you take the lesser of the 2 die, and that is the result of the roll. For an advantage, you take the 2 die. The higher of the 2 is the result of the roll. So roll 2 dice and use the lower value, negated by advantage. As we can see, boom, roll 2 dice and use the higher of the value, negated by disadvantage. Is there another nest for this? It just keeps going. It just keeps going. It's forever advantage and disadvantage. But that is really how it works when it comes to, quote unquote, being a sword and board style of character when it comes to fighter, anyone like that. Now, great weapon fighting is interesting here. So when you roll a 1 or a 2 on a damage die for an attack with the 2-handed weapon, that die is re-rolled once, meaning that, of course, if you roll a 1 or 2 again, you must take that result. And then you get 2 weapon fighting. When you make an offhand attack, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the attack. To do an offhand attack, I believe, and I can't remember 100% because I've actually done the 2 weapon fighting. I believe that is done as a bonus action, but you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the attack, which I believe is actually different than tabletop. Okay, no, it's not. I thought it said a proficiency modifier. So you add your ability modifier, which is this, for example, because we're doing a strength-based attack. You would get +3 to that offhand attack, whereas normally you would not. Normally we would not if you did not have this. Your main attack would get your bonus, your ability modifier. Your offhand would not. With 2 weapon fighting, both get your ability modifier. And it's worth noting too, and historically, 2 weapon fighting has been terrible in D&D, which has been just a real headache. For class features, we have strength and constitution saving throws. Remember, we're going to be using that stat anytime we have to make that respective kind of saving throw. We would use that a modifier bonus, right? So that in case would be a +1 or a +3 here. We get all 3 types of armor proficiency up to heavy, and then we get shield proficiency, and then simple and both martial weapon proficiency. So we get access to all weapons and all armor. In fact, if in the actual tabletop in the player's handbook, this value, it doesn't say light, medium, heavy, simple, martial. It just says all weapons, all armor. Oh, I'm sorry. All armor, shields, simple weapons, and martial weapons. So you get access to damn near everything. Now, you also have a level 1 action called Second Wind. Draw on your stamina to heal yourself. And you'll see that says 1d10 +1. That +1 is reflective of your fighter level. So if I'm level 5, that becomes a 1d10 +5. Remember, anytime it says that lowercase d, 10, get the d, you're going to be looking at a 10-sided die. 1d10 is one 10-sided die. Moving over to skills, ignore this portion that says base skills. This is part of the Githyanki race stuff. But if I could say, for example, I choose nature here, it just becomes a base skill that we have. But ignore that. That's part of being a Githyanki. For the actual proficiencies that we have acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, intimidation, perception, and survival. It gives us quite a range of skills that we can tap into here. Insight is also part of the base kit as well. So just wanted to mention that all these are your basic skills. Remember, anytime you get proficiency in a skill, take acrobatics for example, you get that +2 bonus for that roll in addition to your ability roll. So your ability check would be a +1 plus this +2 from proficiency bonus, resulting in a +3. Now, as abilities go for the fighter, strength is typically what you would go with. But if you went with, say a ranged weapon, maybe you focus more on dexterity. It's not necessarily the tried and true, oh, you got to go strength if you're going fighter. It just depends on what route you want to personally take as a fighter. Do you want to be a fighter that is more about kind of skullduggery or intimidation and trying to kind of sneak around and do things? You can't necessarily sneak, but you definitely can be someone that uses a higher dexterity roll and uses a bow and arrow, or uses a two-handed weapon with heavy strength, whatever it is. And these top three are pretty much the abilities that you would really focus on, right? Even if you didn't go with a ranged weapon, you still want to have a good amount of dexterity for initiative and armor class rolls. And this is something I'm going to be covering in its own video, but before we actually get into the subclasses, what I want to tell you about the fighter is that it makes every single class better. It is like the best thing to multi-class into anything for the most part, because it just has so many capabilities. So we've talked about all these things about the character in the game, but there are some stuff that actually progresses for the base kit that's really worth noting, and it's why the fighter is such a really good base for multi-class. So the first thing we get at level 2 is Action Surge, and it's probably the most important thing for the fighter, because now this basically allows you to have one additional action on top of your regular action and a possible bonus action. So you only get to use this, once you use this feature, you must finish a short or long rest before you can use it again. So it's a once around type of thing, more or less, until you rest, but it is an amazing way to pull additional actions into your action whenever you're playing the character. It's one of those things that makes it so good. You can take 2 levels of fighter for pretty much anything, and it becomes amazing. 10 levels of whatever class you want to do, and 2 levels of fighter, and you have a lot of options open to you. Level 3, you're going to choose your archetype, which is your subclass, which I believe you actually choose at level 1 in Baldur's Gate 3. I can't remember 100% if that's like that for all classes or if some classes have a different route. Then you'll get an ability score improvement like most classes get, but you get an extra attack at level 5 so that you attack twice with melee weapons instead of once whenever you take the attack action. Remember, attacking isn't, I'm going to use my bow. It's, I'm going to make an attack action, thus using my bow. So that's why you get an extra attack when you use that action. You don't get 2 actions out of it. You get 2 attacks out of 1 action. So if you put that together with Action Surge, you basically, hey, I'm going to make 2 attack actions, and I'm going to attack 4 times because I have extra attack because I'm level 5. That's how you get just a ton of damage out of the fighter or any other class you want to multi-class them into. Then at level 9, you get Indomitable, which makes it so you can re-roll a saving throw that you fail, which is quite juicy. If you do so, though, you must use the new roll, and you can't use the feature again until you finish a long rest, which they might have probably changed to short rest here. But that is the base kit for the fighter. And we're going to get now into the subclasses for fighter, which can spice things up or kind of make them bland depending on which one you're taking a look at. The first subclass I want to go into is the champion. And the champion is not a wild subclass. You kind of just become a better fighter. It's not necessarily very dynamic, and I don't want to sell it short, and I'm hoping that there are a lot of big sweeping cool changes in Baldur's Gate 3, because as it stands, you just are going to be better at doing critical hits, which is not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, but you also get an additional fighting style. So when you choose champion, you get an improved critical, and what that means is when you roll your d20 die, a 1 is a critical failure and a 20 is a critical success. Well, the fighter that goes into champion with improved critical, that critical success happens on a 19 or a 20. So you get the ability to basically get a higher likelihood of criticals, and that actually expands out at level 15 to be 18, 19, or 20, whichever one. Now, I don't know if they'll push that into the 12 for the kit, or if they have a different way to approach it here in Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm definitely hoping they do. And if you know, please let me know in the comment section below. But at level 7, you get Remarkable Athlete, where you can add half your proficiency bonus. Now remember, that's this right here. To any strength, dexterity, or constitution check you make that doesn't already use your proficiency bonus. So this is a nice way to just kind of get an extra leg up in anything that you would otherwise need that you don't already have that skill proficiency. Now, another thing that this does that will actually be very directly applicable to Baldur's Gate 3, which might not seem as awesome if you're playing the tabletop, but for those that have played Divinity Original Sin, you know that sometimes there are things that are hidden that you have to that you have to teleport to. Well, in Baldur's Gate 3, they've got the same thing, but you can also do a jump action in Baldur's Gate 3, so it allows you to jump to things that you otherwise would not be able to reach. This is really good for, I think it's the Thief that has the cool jumping capabilities. Well, with Remarkable Athlete, in addition, when you make a running long jump, the distance you can cover increases by a number of feet equal to your strength modifier. In the case of this Gold Dwarf, that would be a +2. So, this would be nice for jumping to locations that have hidden chests and whatnot in Baldur's Gate 3. But again, that's something that you might not think is as applicable when you're playing the tabletop, but it is going to be probably pretty big in this game to find anything that holds hidden goodies. At level 10, though, you get to choose an additional fighting style. So if you met with maybe 2-weapon fighting, or maybe you wanted to go really heavy, hard into the one-handed sword and board route, you can go dueling now, and you can get defense, and you can get protection. I mean, you can get all those as well. But this is very nice to allow you to kind of really get a lot of variety. Or maybe you want to go be an archer that also dual wields, so now you can get archery and 2-weapon fighting. Whatever you want to do, you have that option here as a champion. And then at level 18, you get survivor, but we're not going to be getting there. So that is the champion, a very bare bones subclass, but one that just kind of adds more fighter abilities to your already present fighter class. Oh, look, I made myself. So here is the Battlemaster. Now, the Battlemaster is probably arguably one of the more enjoyable fighter subclasses. It's quite strong, and we're going to go through that here because you get combat superiority at level 3. There are 3 things that you get with combat superiority. You get maneuvers. Now maneuvers, you get 3 of these special maneuvers, and I'm going to put them on the screen here. You can see all of the maneuvers that you get access to, at least in the player's handbook. I'm sure that there's more from like Tasha's book of everything, or whatever the hell it's called. All that sort of action, and I'm sure they've actually changed and revamped the maneuvers to fit the Baldur's Gate 3 template. But these maneuvers basically kind of give you these special actions that you can do that allow you to kind of modify certain things. So let me tell you, let's go over one of them in specific, because they use your superiority die. So precision attack. When you make a weapon attack roll against a creature, you can expend 1 superiority die to add it to the roll. You can use this maneuver before or after making the attack roll, but before any effects of the attack are applied. So this allows you to kind of get a leg up in any attack where you go, well, you know, I really want to do a little bit extra here. I'm not really satisfied with the roll that I made. Before I actually complete this act, let me do a precision attack and throw in some superiority die. Now, superiority dice, you have 4 of those superiority die, and they are all D8s to start off with. Now, superiority die is expended when you use it. You regain all of your expended superiority dice when you finish a short or a long rest. And these superiority die will eventually become D10 and then D12 at levels 10 and 18 respectively. So probably just D10 for us, being that we're playing in Baldur's Gate 3. So you use the superiority die to do your maneuvers, and you get 3 maneuvers at the start. And these maneuvers, you can only use 1 per attack, and you learn 2 additional maneuvers of your choice at the 7th, 10th, and 15th level. And here's an interesting little bit. Each time you learn new maneuvers, you can also replace 1 maneuver you know with a different one. So put a little thought into these maneuvers. You definitely want to see what they look like in the game, right? Before you don't want to pre-decide them here looking at the player's handbook, where it's probably a little bit different. But there's one other portion to combat superiority, and it's saving throws. Some of your maneuvers require your target to make a saving throw to resist the maneuver's effect. The saving throw's difficulty class is calculated as follows. And basically it has to do with your proficiency bonus, your strength and or dexterity modifier of your choice. So anytime it says something like, okay, the enemy has to basically resist this effect, they would use that calculation there. And that's not as crucial because it's probably going to be a little bit different and more behind the scenes for Baldur's Gate 3, but it's just kind of worth noting. So that's at level 3. You also get Student of War. So when you become a Battlemaster, you gain proficiency in 1 type of artisan's tool of your choice. At the 7th level, you get Know Thy Enemy. Now, I'm not really sure how they're going to be putting this into Baldur's Gate 3, but basically you spend some time and you study an enemy in the game, in the tabletop. And then the Dungeon Master, the DM, will then reveal to you the Strength, Dex, Constitution, Armor class, current hit points, total class level, or Fighter class levels of the monster if they are less than, equal to or greater than yours. So you say, hey, you know what? I want to assess that creature over there. What are its strength? What's its strength and its constitution score? And let's say it would look at my strength and constitution, which is 16 and 15 respectively. You know, let's just say they're both 16 to make this easier. Then the DM would go, well, its strength is less than you, but it's got the same constitution as you. This can help you kind of get a bearance of the enemy. So I'm not sure how they would do this in Baldur's Gate 3. It might be something that gives you some sort of advantage, something that allows you to learn that information outright, right? Like find out what its armor class is, whatever it is to kind of help give you a leg up in combat. Improved combat superiority happens at the 10th level. That's the one that turns our maneuvers from a D8 into a D10. And then Relentless happens at level 15. So when you roll initiative and have no superiority dice remaining, you gain 1 superiority die. And that is your Battlemaster. It doesn't sound like it's like a crazy class with all these super complex little things you get per level, but the maneuvers are huge. They're very strong. It's just a way to add a ton of flair and flavor into your fighter to allow them to get a lot of different ways to apply things. And you could even just use this as a base for a multi-class and get a lot of fun out of it. You just simply need to get to fighter level 3 and you get access to all these Battlemaster maneuvers if you go to the subclass of Battlemaster. Now remember, you only get one subclass. So you can't go, oh, I'm going to go fighter Battlemaster and then sorcerer wild mage, and it's going to be the craziest thing I've ever done. You can't do that. You can only do one subclass. But I think the Battlemaster is probably the best subclass for the fighter because it seems to add just so much flavor to the things that the fighter already does. The last subclass is the Eldritch Knight, which basically combines fighter with wizard innately into the class. Now you only pull from 2 spell schools here: Abjuration, which grants the Eldritch Knight additional protection in battle, and Evocation, which deals damage to many foes at once, extending the fighter's reach in combat. You might have melee touch abilities or you might have range combat abilities, whatever it is. You'll get access to 2 cantrips from the wizard spell list, and then you'll be able to pull from the wizard spell list for your spells. Now the problem I see here is that at level 12, you'll only get access to 4 level 1 spell slots and 3 level 2 spell slots. So you won't get a ton of actual big, heavy hitting spells to pull into with the Eldritch Knight, but you get some fun capabilities in their actual abilities. So at level 3, when you become an Eldritch Knight, you get to bond a weapon. And what this means in tabletop is that basically you just can't be disarmed, and you can summon the weapon to you if it's on the same plane as you. So I could see them trying to do something with this where, you know, maybe this gives you some sort of bonus to using the weapon, whatever it is. I mean, you wouldn't get proficiency because you already have simple and martial weapon proficiency. You're pretty much covered. Or maybe you can bond a weapon that your race can't otherwise use, because we know that there are certain items that are race restricted. So I'm very curious to see what they do with Weapon Bond, because I think it's something that would probably have more of an application in tabletop and less of one in BG3, so I'd love to see how that kind of applies to the game. Now at level 7 you get War Magic, which is pretty cool here. So when you use your action to cast a cantrip, you can make 1 weapon attack as a bonus action. Now we've talked about cantrips in some other videos, but just to kind of refresh here, cantrips count as a level 0 spell, meaning they do not use a spell slot, and you can use them every turn if you so wish. So you could just infinitely cast, I'm using a high elf, or a high half elf. He's just fucking high, dude. But you can use cantrips every turn. So for example here, we could use Firebolt every turn if we had that in our kit as an Eldritch Knight. So basically when you use this cantrip, you can then make 1 weapon attack as a bonus action, which allows you to not have to use Action Surge to get a little bit of oomph out of your cantrip weapon attack combo. And remember, you make 1 weapon attack as a bonus action. You don't take an attack action as a bonus action, meaning you would just simply, I think you would just simply use the single weapon attack. Then Eldritch Strike at level 10, you learn how to make your weapon strike undercut a creature's resistance to your spells. So whenever you hit a creature with a weapon attack, that creature then has a disadvantage on the next saving throw that it has to make against your spells, not just spells in general. It's going to be your spells. That might be changed too. That might be like spells in general, which could be pretty cool. But Arcane Charge happens at level 15, which allows you to teleport when you use your Action Surge. So that's pretty sick, right? You use your Action Surge, you teleport and just dump a ton of damage into something. And then level 18, you get improved War Magic. That says that whenever you know, War Magic was whenever you cast a cantrip, the bonus action is 1 weapon attack. Well, this is whenever you use your action to cast a spell. That's at level 18, we probably wouldn't see that in the game. But those are your 3 subclasses here for the fighter. So the fighter seems like a class that is very bare bones, right? It's a class that you maybe don't have a lot going for it on its own. But I still think that the fighter is one of those classes that you're going to be able to sprinkle into any other class in a multi-class situation and have one that really, really benefits them in a lot of different ways. You want to be a rogue that uses a ton of actions, then just get to level 2 on your fighter and now you get action surge. You want to be a caster that casts spells, like an additional spell action in one of your turns before doing that rest. Take 2 levels of fighter, you get that action surge. Maybe you want to be a ranger or a cleric or a paladin that actually is going to be jumping up close and personal and doing some damage. Well, take fighter, go to level 5, you get action surge, and then you get your extra attack. So your melee capabilities, they skyrocket because you just have so much more actions going for you. The fighter is a really, really, really fun class to just sprinkle across the board here in D&D, and I think it's why you see it always multi-classed into a bunch of different options. And even if you go with a pure class, the Battlemaster is so fun and so interesting here. So hopefully this helps you out in deciding how fighter might fit into any possible builds or kits you've got, or it helps you out in deciding if you even want to go with fighter. My good buddy Remortis here was telling me that a really cool build is you take champion level 2 or level 3, whatever, you know, you have to, if we choose champion at level 1, we would choose go to level 2. You get champion, you get your ability to do your critical hits, and then you spice off into barbarian so that you get a bunch of champion level 3 and barbarian level 9. That way you just have a bunch of fun barbarian things that you can do while also getting a bunch of stuff with your criticals, because that's how you get the level 3 for your champion. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.